All right. Hey guys. We're back. I know we said on the last one that we'd see each other on Thursday night and post something Friday, but um, we were busy. It was more on me. I was super tired that night. I had a lot of work that was piling up and a lot of work heading on the weekend, and I was low key almost falling asleep from time to time, and I just felt bad. It just felt wrong of me because I didn't do the best at kind of hosting and interacting. So it was going to be a really bland, I guess, a bland set of videos for you guys. So we're fresh, we're rejuvenated, and yeah, welcome back to Sports Insomniacs.
We're back. Yep.
So I think we should address the elephant in the room. There's a reason I had all this get up on and this custom wallpaper. So Julian Edelman is my favorite football player, period. Of course, I became a Patriots fan, I'll say 07, 08, but from like 07 and then 011, that era, I like them, but it's like how a little kid will like a team. You don't really get into them. But then at 2011 is when they got to the second Super Bowl in that time frame. I became really a fan. It was heartbreaking, it is what it is. But Edelman became this player that I just truly admired. He had this. He was handsome as hell. Uh, My parents were telling me I would be his height. I would be around 5'11", 6 foot. When I talked about him, I wanted to get his haircut. That was like the first time I went to a barber shop. I showed them a picture of Julian Edelman's. I was like, I want this haircut. When I wanted my first Patriots jersey, it was a Julian Edelman jersey. And the play that really made me fall in love with him is this play right here. This was during a regular season. It was 2014. It was the year after we lost to the Broncos in the AFC Championship game, that Peyton Manning touchdown, crazy offensive year. And Julian Edelman had an 84-yard touchdown return. And I remember watching that live and just knowing this was something special that I was watching, and it was amazing. And there was something about just his grit. He was just so tough. He was just a happy guy, just always smiling. But it felt different than Gronk because I also like being contrarian. So Gronk was, other than Brady, Gronk was everyone's favorite Patriot player, and I wanted to be Edelman. And beyond this, of course, this is just the start. And even before this is the start of Edelman being one of the best slot receivers of all time. This is very biased. This is, I guess, but Edelman is just one of my favorite players. He is my favorite player, regardless. I vividly remember the touchdown pass to Amendola in the divisional game against the Ravens that same year. Of course, even in that Super Bowl, I remember the last touchdown pass, and then Edelman just looking at Brady, and then Brady doing this hand gesture like we did it. And of course, I can go play after play. Of course, the insane near incompletion against the Falcons, the bobble of catching the Super Bowl. It was amazing in the Super Bowl against the Rams, Super Bowl 53. And I mean, he won the MVP. It should have been Gilmore. I'm gonna be honest. That it should have been Savon Gilmore. It shouldn't have been. But I just want to say, like, I am just so appreciative that I got to watch Edelman, and he's what made me really fall in love with the Patriots. And then when I got older, I started seeing Belichick as a way to model how I would want to as a work ethic. But before that, it was just Julian Edelman and all the gadgety plays. He was just good at everything, and it's awesome. Anyways, but that's my emotional. And when I saw when I saw the retirement announcement, it hit me the way they just. If you all haven't seen it on Twitter, it's amazing. The way they just all the audio clips throughout the Patriots, the Patriots run while he was there, and it's yeah, I guess I thought it was going to be more coherent than this, but yeah, I just love the guy and hope the best for him, and because he's given so much to me as a fan, and I couldn't have been more grateful.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's well said. And as a, I know how big of a Patriots fan you are, and so, Julian definitely meant a lot. He was, part of everything that the Patriots identity is, of being team player, doing everything that you asked for, going above and beyond, being like the best teammate that you can ask for. He was awesome for sure. From the others, I guess from the other side, because we played against Julian and the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
It's like a new modern rivalry. I hope this every time, and I appreciate it. But
absolutely.
Go ahead.
Every game between the Seahawks and the Patriots has been good.
I know, so. it's a great modern rivalry in my mind.
So I love it, honestly. But yeah, I Julian just like always that efficient guy, and like I listened to some of the other media pundits talk about him today. One of the things I really took away was that he as a receiver, he didn't have like the flashiest stats, because he wasn't the guy that like wasn't the receivers on like some other teams that'd be like, hey, it's like we're playing from behind the fourth quarter, we're gonna have to rack up big yards and stuff like that. No, usually the Patriots were leading, so Julian Edelman had to like he was the guy that was doing the third down clutch situation, kind of like passes, getting those receptions. I heard like he was like doing a lot of blocking, even like down in the stretch, which is like that's amazing. Like to ask him to do so many things, and he did all those things very well. So I guess one question I wanted to ask you is that like when I thought about today, my initial reaction, of course, I was I don't know Julian Edelman to the depth that you do, but when I think about today, it's like he retired. So in terms of his Hall of Fame, his Hall of Fame eligibility, some part of me, first of all, said like, was he a Hall of Famer? And then I said, that's a dumb question to even ask. But I'm asking you today, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer?
No.
No.
Objectively, okay. No. In my heart of hearts, he will like, I will wait. We do these thought experiments all the time. When you're talking with other sports fans, what would be your you're 11 on offense, you're 11 on defense. What would be your 11 on offense and 11 on defense? Build your starting roster, your starting lineup. And sure. Even though he probably isn't the best slot receiver, I'll always put him there. I'll always have Rice, Randy Moss, and then Edelman in the slot. Even though like there's probably better guys you can put at the slot. He's just that good. You just see him pull up clutch in such pivotal moments. That part of me wants to say, well, not first ballot, but part of me wants to say yes, he'll be a Hall of Famer. But I mean, no, he isn't. If we're being objective, it sucks.
But you do believe
if you just took his playoff stats, of course he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But
right.
I mean, this overall dominance, he wasn't necessarily dominant. Do you know what I'm saying? He was never a dominant receiver. It was never he was never rated as super hard to play against. I don't know. Of course, he was hard to play against. I'm just trying to think of a way to put this. Like
coverage one kind of stuff.
It's just he was just so gritty. It was just. I mean, he's a seventh round, like, well, Brady's sixth rounder. He's, of course, the greatest of all time. But I mean, it's not like he has the best physical skills. He's not the fastest. He's tough as hell, but he's not like he's below 6 foot. So yeah. It's just pound for pound the grittiness of it. And also beyond it, he is the archetype of all the other athletes that I like root for now. Like as individual players, even going to the NBA, it's people like it's why I like watching even deep like even though he's an offensive player. There's something about him that's just like that grit. Just he's not the physically the greatest coming in, and then it's just works his ass off to like just be how gritty and tough he is. And not just tough, but also just being on the same page as Brady and knowing how to read. Like he diced, that was probably the Chiefs defense being terrible, but the AFC Championship game before that Rams Super Bowl and before Super Bowl 53 again, that classic game overtime, right? Edelman was just dicing it up like in the whole that whole playoff, right? It
Right.
was also just cerebral, but to answer your question, is he a Hall of Famer? Sadly, no. I,
Is he?
I
Oh, really?
I have to be. I mean, first ballot at least. No, first ballot, no.
Is he a
Which
Hall of Famer? That's the question, I guess.
I think yes, because time's gonna go on, and people like time is. What am I gonna say? With the what's the phrase? Anyways, hindsight 2020, when you're going to look into the future, like 20 years, 30 years, this Patriots run, I don't think is going to be repeated. Like because I mean, it's too big. It's too. But look at the Chiefs. Right, like what happened with the Chiefs? The Chiefs were by far and away this year, I think, the best team. Like they were so dominant. Like you could say all this, and they had the precipice for like to create a run of like a new dynasty, like back to back and all of that. And the way they got shellacked by the Bucks, I think there's gonna be something like that happens with teams from now on because now I mean Mahomes is gonna get more expensive, so I don't know if the Chiefs. This is getting into tangents. Point is, I think 20 years from now they're gonna look at this stretch that Edelman had and Gronk. Of course, Gronk is a Hall of Famer, but Edelman, the second half Patriots dynasty, and they're going to be like, he was the best receiver on the second half Patriots, so we have to put him in the Hall of Fame. But hey, he's not going to be first ballot. You know what I'm saying?
That's fair. Okay.
Because he was, I think, yeah. I don't know if it's this. I mean, there's like three stages. I think Max Harmon talks about this, right? There's three stages. There's of course the Belichick defensive guru. I mean, he still is, but it was the early aughts, Brady kind of being secondary in a way. Yeah. And there's the middle where Brady was amassing these insane stats, like record-setting the 2007, 2011 record-setting years, and just being quite dominant, but not necessarily winning anything, but just being that dominant alone is
insane,
amazing, and would have warranted a Hall of Fame just on that. And then Edelman was, on the back end of that. And then you have this the third era of just winning in just complete defense, offense, everything was just a complete way of winning.
Right.
And I think you just look at this era and I think you'd have to definitively say Edelman was the best receiver. Is that fair? Am I missing anybody?
I think that's fair. Like if I for me, I think Edelman deserves a Hall of Fame spot, certainly.
Yeah.
Will he get one? I think eventually, yes. Like again, I agree that probably not first ballot Hall of Famer. But 3 Super Bowls that he amassed, that he had a big reason to, for contributing to each of them. I don't think that's going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame. So I think he's going to Canton anyways. So
I think he deserves it. Well, I think he deserves it from a sentimental, just from a winning standpoint. And me as a Patriots fan, I'm probably just really biased. Like if I take my analysts, you could there's stats that'll tell you straight up that Welker was a better slot receiver. But I'm like, I know what I saw. Like
right.
This guy Welker dropped. No offense, we lost Super Bowl 46 because of Welker, right? Now I'm putting my fan cap on. Like we watched Super Bowl 46 because of Welker. he made these drops. Like it was, but Edelman was the clutchest guy. Like he could make some boneheaded drops at the beginning of games, but like he was so clutch. He always made it. He always came back to just. It was like he'd make the most. I shouldn't say insane, like acrobatic, but just focused catches and the way he just ran through people to get just grit out first downs because of course it's the Patriots, beat you by 1,000 cuts, but those cuts it worked because of how tough Edelman was. Like
Right.
he could just and I just seeing that and just there's so many things with this Patriots dynasty. The second, well, not the whole, but this a third part, the second half / third part. I mean, if it wasn't for Edelman, I'm not sure like who you'd find because he did so many. We wouldn't have won that the AFC divisional game against the Ravens, 2014-15 season, 2014 regular season, but it's the 2015 playoffs. It's kind of weird how that works. Well, we wouldn't have won that game without that pass, these trick plays. Of course, Super Bowl 51 against the Falcons. If he doesn't make that insane catch, we don't win it. But beyond that, there's just so many just pivotal moments that I can just remember. Include like this game was a blowout, but this game against the Broncos in the regular season. But I remember vividly just watching that game on CBS, 3:15 Central Time, just seeing just Edelman it was very early on almost. He's got the ball and just oh my gosh. And it wasn't even like he was super quick. It was just there was something just amazing to watch about him. And I was kind of hoping you wouldn't necessarily ask the question about Hall of Fame, just to give us a moment to just appreciate Julian Edelman and how amazing he's been. But it's natural, of course. It's one of those debates, and Patriots fans will tell you, of course, first ballot, blah blah. Like I'm telling, I think he should be, but that's only from a fan perspective. If I'm being objective, I think he won't be first ballot, but I think with hindsight, they're going to put him in just because he was the best receiver on this stretch run.
Definitely. I hope he does too. I just think, even as a fan that, played against the Patriots, whose team played against the Patriots, I just think he's too great to be left out. So, yeah. Absolutely.
And he was like, it was this year. This was the year he retired after this year. Yeah. But this is when he torched y'all. He torched y'all, man. Yeah, I think that's the most receiving yards he's had in a game, I think that's also why you want us to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Because I think he had like 160 plus, I think he had 168 yards. And that was like the highest, almost by far, I think, but that was the highest he's ever had in a game. And when you think of Hall of Fame receivers, you don't think of it like that. You always think they're dominant or they had a stretch run. You don't think of it as like, oh, he was like the best glue guy. But I think Edelman was one of the best glue guys.
That's fair.
In a football sense.
I would say you reach the Hall of Fame in two ways. One, you take the route of you're just so talented and you amass like insane stats in the NFL through your career, and so like you could get there that way. Or you're the guy like Julian Edelman, who's like the guy who's been like a little bit underappreciated, but he's always been so important to the team. And they've had so much success, you can't really like just neglect that. So like a person like, I guess in the first category, you'd say a person like Julio Jones. Is that someone that would probably make the Hall of Fame without a problem, or is that someone?
Yeah, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Okay, that's fair. But he's more of a talent guy, I guess. And I guess success did follow.
No, but what I'm saying is, so I saw this. Welker by far has better stats than Edelman.
Okay, right.
Like from just a season, like the yards, touchdowns, like that 2007 season from Brady. That I think that's also just tied in with. I mean, Brady was in a different way just more prolific in 2007, 2011. But like if you were to say you're the second route you were talking about, right? The second route, that would be like, oh, then Welker's in the Hall of Fame. But for some reason, I always think like because he's won more Super Bowls, I'm like Edelman is better than Welker, I guess. Even though like the stats won't tell you that, and just he wasn't the best, but he was more statistically dominant than Edelman was on a really good like a historic Patriots team. That they went undefeated the regular season and all that. I mean, so that's the thing. But again, like I've said like I'm a parrot right now. Think with in like 10, 20 years, Hall of Fame eligibility is, I mean, beyond Hall of Fame eligibility, like even longer than that. Like he won't be first ballot, but over time they're gonna see like, man, 40 years ago, like, oh my God, like this, and then
there you go.
We'll see. I mean, that's also me projecting that a run like this won't happen again. When you could say that and it happens, it's just you look at the NFL right now, and I'm not quite sure. And I guess I'm saying right now, and then eventually, but look at all these quarterbacks, right? They're just getting better and better coming from college, right? And if the schemes, if these coordinators keep getting better and better, and defenses they become more reactionary and just stop a couple of plays rather than be dominant. Like, what I guess what I'm saying is, it's just I think it's going to be hard to find the next guy with the way the NFL is projecting as such a. It's about getting the better. It almost feels like it's about getting the better coach, because all these guys are talented. Like this super crazy athletic, like all these new age of quarterbacks. We were like, man, I'm on this weird. I'm wired in today, I guess, but we were thinking that there could be 4 quarterbacks taken in a row in this draft. Think of like, and they're all like this, and it's not like we're gonna say, oh, the year after is not gonna be that good. So what? But and they'll still find like Joe Burrows, for example, or just there's gonna be these quarterbacks that just keep churning and churning in. That right. I don't know if you're gonna have like a standout guy. Like you might say, oh, Mahomes is that standout guy, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So that was a weird, but I guess in summation, we love you, Edelman. Yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
Love you, Jules. All right. So